let's do it. Let's do my top horror books. If you want recommendations of other spooky reads, I have done in the past spooky reads, haunted house books. I've done fall books too, which can be a little atmospheric. But this year, I feel ready. I don't have imposter syndrome. I have read plenty of horror now, and I really love the genre, and I wanted to do my favorite. And, you know, I do recommend them if you're interested in them, but this is just my list. And it brings me a lot of joy. I own most, if not all of these books because I love them so much, and I actually ranked them. It was actually pretty easy to, like, get the top, like, creme de la creme of all the horrors I've read. And then ranking them a little harder, but I weighed it with both how much did I rate it after I read it, like was it a 5-star when I finished it, and then how much did it stay with me? Because I have had some horror books that, like, objectively 4-star, 3.5-star, but did they leave my brain in the last 2 years? No, they did not. So they're on the list. So it's a combination of those things. I don't know how basic this list is. I don't think it's a super basic favorite horrors list. I don't really care if it is either. Like, that's fine. I like liking popular things. That is not a thing that I want to be hipster about. But I will say you won't always find some of these in the bookstore. Some of these are loved and some of these are very mixed in the community. But I do think when I made this list, I did try really hard to have just horror books and not necessarily genre blendy horror reads. And I'm pretty sure that's fairly true because there are plenty of other books I could have added that were like fantasy horror or sci-fi horror that definitely straddle it a bit more. But I feel like on this list, these are all primarily horror reads. And I put on 12 books because I'm impossible. And it's partially because I really wanted to mention 11 and 12. Like, in reality, they're not part of the top 10. Like, there's actually quite a big step between them. But I wanted to bring them up. One, because these were the earliest horror books that I read. And the fact that they're still on this list, you know, should be spoken about. But also one of them's a Stephen King. And I felt like I should talk about a Stephen King. Not that you have to. But when you're from America and you think of horror, Stephen King makes an appearance, all right? And actually, that's where we're going to start. My number 12 is Lisey's Story by Stephen King, which is probably not the horror book most people would put on this list. I actually have only read a handful of Stephen King books. One of them's Insomnia, which I read in high school, and I read half of Salem's Lot, and I never finished it when I was in high school. And I read Lisey's Story and the fantasy release that came out a few years ago that I can't remember the name of. Lisey's Story was one I was made to read because of my patrons. They were like, haha, I can put this on the poll. You're going to read this. And I'm like, okay. And so I read it, and I read it primarily as an audiobook, and I think I read it 2021, I want to say. It was a while ago. And my mom actually has a really beautiful hardback copy, and she really likes it too. Because she struggles, because she likes Stephen King, but she doesn't like the really scary stuff, and I thought this would be a good middle ground. Because I still think it's horror. There's like a liminal space thing going on. There's like a monster thing. It is unsettling, but it's not as horrifying as some of his other stuff. The premise of this is, well, I think for context, I'm pretty sure this is written after Stephen King's car accident. And it's written about a woman whose husband was a famous author who died in a car accident. And she is left behind this book. Presumably, I think it's called Lisey's Story, but basically she keeps learning about her husband and these things she didn't know about him and the inspiration for his works. And it was very creepy. Like, it was a really awesome, creepy time. Like, I had a really good time consuming it. So if you want something atmospheric and creepy, I think the ending was pretty good. At least I don't have a bad taste in my mouth for it. But that said, do I want to reread it? No. I just appreciate the time I had consuming it, especially because I do think when I picked this one up, I had recently read Misery, and I didn't like that one as much, which I know a lot of people like Misery, but it is what it is. I really like Lisey's Story. I think my biggest complaint about Lisey's Story is that should not be the title of the book, but that's neither here nor there. The actual book itself, the story and the flashbacks and the intrigue of like what actually happened and what is this place and is it gonna get her? There were some scenes where she's alone in a building and I just remember chills. I truly remember chills. My number 11 is Sorrowland by River Solomon. This is probably one of the books that maybe slightly breaks my genre blending rule, but I do hold that this is a horror first and a sci-fi second. And barely a sci-fi. We start this book with a mother giving birth to her twins in a forest running away. Like, and there is something interesting, weird, unsettling happening to our body. So this has more like a body horror element. There's a cult element to it. It's very fast-paced and engaging, and it had some really lovely, quiet moments. And this is my favorite River Solomon. I've read all of their novels, and I've read one novella. I haven't read one of their short stories, but this is my favorite. And it also has great representation for an intersex character, if you're ever looking for that. But this came out, I read it when it came out, I couldn't put it down, it had me. And this was probably one of my first horror books that I read for the channel. So those are just kind of like honorable mentions, still things I think highly of. But then we're gonna hit the ground running. I'm gonna spoil a little bit here. The bottom 3 books are all by the same author. There's a lot of repeat authors, and I can't help it. I am who I am. I really like these authors. Okay? So Victor LaValle, he takes this section of the list. And the bottom 2, 9 and 10, are actually both what I would call like dark fantasy horror, specifically like a la Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro, like that vibe. Number 10 being The Changeling. And I totally get it when I see people who don't love the first part of The Changeling and don't love the second part, because he does this thing with my bottom 2 books where it's like 2 stories for the price of one, and not everyone's gonna like that transition, because the first part is a gripping possession feeling story, and you are stressed and it is tense. You're like, what is happening? And then it kind of loses, I think, that momentum a little bit for the second half. But then the second half is that dark fantasy that I really like. And so it's called The Changeling, right? So it has to do with the myth of changelings, this exchange of a child for a fae creature. And it really plays around with it in a fascinating way. It has the best father character I think I've ever read. I feel like we don't get a lot of good father representation, especially as the main character, but he's amazing. Also, if you like being in New York City, this was a really good set in New York City book. This was my first Victor LaValle. It was actually one of the first horror books recommended to me because, I like a lot of fantasy and, people were trying to help me transition in. But yeah, I read the first part that was like truly terrifying. I'm like, oh man, I kind of like how stressed I am right now. But also this was just the year where I was also consuming Pan's Labyrinth for the first time. And like, I do just like the atmosphere of a dark fantasy. And so that's also here. And then the other one is a more recent release called Lone Woman. This one's very good. This one, like the opening scene, a woman is leaving a barn that has blood everywhere and she's setting on fire and her parents are dead. And you're like, what happened? And she has a box, and what's in the box? And again, this is a story that like starts off with the beats of a familiar type of horror and transitions into a different type of story. And that transition's gonna vary for people, but I loved it. Especially because we're in Montana and we're getting to see a lot of people settle the land. And it's a lot of people of color and a lot of queer people and a lot of women, because this is one of the unique situations in the 1800s where a woman could be on their own in this situation specifically. And it's about survival and community. And I mean, there's a reason why this book, although the main character is a woman, it's not called Lone Woman, it's Woman. And it's very good. And I think both with this and The Changeling, he will give you familiar beats, but not when you expect them. And I think that's the switch up that really makes them engaging for me. So with that said, I then eventually read The Devil in Silver, which is not like those two at all. And I don't think anyone reads this book but me. Okay? Like the other two, like I think The Changeling is getting or has a TV show. Lone Woman was very well marketed. I found The Devil in Silver randomly in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I only knew about it because my friend Jocelyn told me about it. And this one, like, I really do want to recommend this to people who like character-focused horror, like indulgent Stephen King stuff that I've read. Because I don't really know, there's no plot, is there? I don't know, there is a plot. So the idea of this is our main character, I'm forgetting his name. He's this large white man, I remember that. And he has like a silly name that's paired with that. And he ends up in an asylum because one night the cops just don't want to deal with him. So they have this kind of like deal with this asylum. And they're just like, you're just going to stay here for observation for a bit because we don't want to actually go through the process of filling out the proper forms. And then he is wrongfully in this asylum for the book. And so there's that injustice kind of tension there. But also these characters are fascinating. Like the dynamics of the individuals in here and what this man is trying to do to get out, but also like trying to figure out what's happening because things go bump in the night. Things don't make sense. Is it supernatural? Is it just medical? What's going on? And I just loved the slow burn. And then again, this is different than the other two, but there are points where I'm like, oh, I guess we're telling this type of story now? All right, I will sit back and watch. And it's really good. And it sits with me. And it stays in my brain. And I can't get it out. Like, when I finished it, I'm like 4.5 stars, probably. 4.5. Because, like, the pacing's weird. Is there a plot? Sometimes I was more interested than other times. But then I think about it. And I think of those people. And I think of what the book is saying about it. The injustice of not providing adequate care for people who need it. Because that's the horror at the deep, like, center of this. It's not the actual asylum. It's not even necessarily what these doctors are doing. It's what the doctors are not able to do. And what we do with people we consider undesirable or unfixable. That is the issue. And it's really good. And that paired with, I want to say his name is Pepper. And that could be very wrong. Do I have a copy of this book near me? I do. I need to figure out what his name is because it's bothering me. It is Pepper. I did it. This is my copy. So, like, and then there's just this idea of, like, Pepper has his own baggage. And can he gain something from being in this situation? Should he have been here all along? We don't know. Like, it's so good. So that one's my favorite, Victor LaValle. Even though I would say the pacing is the wonkiest. The character work is fantastic, though. I really love the character work. Our next one is also, like, a book where objectively the pacing is not great, okay? Like, it's long, it's indulgent. I totally get it when people don't like it, but I'm obsessed and it's been 2 years and it has not left my brain. And that's Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. Oh my goodness. I love this book. It has 6 chapters and it's like 700 pages, okay? I'm just gonna start off by saying it's not gonna be for everyone, but it was very much for me. In each chapter, it's not chronological. Some jump forward, some go back, some focus on a cult, some focus on liminal spaces and this haunted house, some focus on kind of the classic horror story of these children going from innocence to adulthood and horror things are happening around them. We have a weird sort of horror chosen one situation. We have parents with a dark past. It's so interesting. And again, it does a lot of good pairing with real life horrors, and you get to experience like the nostalgic 90s in Argentina, and I just ate it up. It was so engaging to me. Like, I truly had the best time. And I totally see, like, I think it's especially like chapter 3 is where we have like the children's story, and it's like 300 pages. And it meanders as children do. But I loved it. I really loved it. Yeah, I get it when it's not for everyone. I think about it constantly and just the atmosphere and how gross it is at times and just, ugh. It was just, there were some places we went that I was just like, ugh. It was great. It was awesome. So that's probably like 8 and, like, not 8 and 9. The Devil in Silver and Our Share of Night, those are my like slow burn horrors that like I recognize their flaws, but they are perfect to me, sort of thing. And then we get into the next 3 are just kind of like, these are just a good time. These are so good and engaging and fun. And like, if you just want to romp around in a horror, these are great. And that's just, I guess, what I ended up doing when I was ranking this list. But the next one is a Tananari Do called The Good House. Main character's named Angela. She's pretty great. So The Good House is... what doesn't it have? It has secret past things that need to come to the surface because there's going to be kind of revenge of the spirits. We have the haunted house. We have so many fun things. We have like weird possession-y things happening. Like there's spiritual influences. It's so good. And then you kind of have like the past and the present, and it's like, how did we get here? What's going to happen? When is the shoe dropping? And I love the ending. People can fight me for the ending. I love it. Some people don't, but I thought it was bold and I loved it and I will fight for it. And I read like the last third of this on Halloween or the day before Halloween, and it was one of the best decisions I have ever made. Yeah. In terms of like character growth, recovery from past with horror, and having a cast of characters to go through the horror with. Beautiful. It was exactly like I wanted to read this. I didn't want to watch it. I didn't wish it was a movie or anything like that. I wanted to read this. I was with it for the exact right amount of time. And it's like a 500-page book. And it is so good. Okay? It is well-paced. It's gripping. I love it. The next two are actually the same author. Because again, I have some favorite horror authors, let's just say. And actually, honestly, on any given day, these might flip. I actually don't know. Actually, I'm going to flip them right now. So this next one is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. And please, please, don't pick this up if you want a gothic book. Please. So many people do, and so many people are disappointed, and like, it's not what the book is. It's just not a gothic book. Like, it has gothic tinges. It's definitely inspired by some gothic things. Like, this woman marries a man that she hardly knows and ends up at this ranch, the hacienda, and people keep talking about his dead wife. I get that. That sounds very Rebecca. I get it. But it's a pulpy horror book, okay? It is pulpy. We have these two characters who have insane chemistry, and they're in do or die spiritual situations, and it's sexy, and it's tense, and it's scary, and the house just keeps going, Beatrice, and it just keeps doing weird house things, and it's so creepy, and it has really good commentary about, because this is taking place in Mexico, and I think it's right around Mexico's independence. I could be wrong, but one of our characters is a priest who kind of holds both indigenous medical teachings and Christian, and like how that affects his relationship to spiritualness and magic adjacencies, and it's really good. And also just like, why is the hacienda haunted in the way that it is by this dead kind of white woman? And like, I say white, like she's still like, she's a Spaniard. I don't think she's Mexican. Like, our priest is mestizo. It's a whole thing. It's really good. I really like how Isabel Cañas does like history with her horror. It's basically everything I want when I read a Silvia Moreno Garcia, but I never get, but I get it with Isabel Cañas, which could mean that you might not get it, because I don't know actually the overlap between the fan base of Silvia Moreno Garcia and Isabel Cañas, who both play in the historical history space of Mexico and do supernatural adjacent things. But for me, this was so fun. It was so fun. And then we've got Vampires of El Norte, which people who say there's not enough vampires, again, I want to fight you. First of all, there's metaphorical vampires, and second of all, there are real vampires in a huge vampire fight scene. Like, what are we talking about? What do you mean there are no vampires? Like, I don't understand. They are on page. Like, when this book came out, if you weren't here for that, that's all anyone could talk about, and I read the book, and I'm like, what are we? What are we? This is also, like, I also think she does romance and horror blended together in a way I eat up. So, like, the last book I talked about, The Hacienda, there's this chemistry tension. It's kind of like a forbidden romance, but we're going to give into it because we could die and everything's so overwhelming and you're like a safe place to land. I eat that up. This one is friends to lovers' second chance, and they're re-meeting again after they were children, and Nestor had a glow up, but he keeps reverting back to childhood self around Magdalena. And Magdalena is a lot. I will say one of the reasons why sometimes the Hacienda is above this is Maggie's a lot. she's a lot. And there's a portion of land right at the Mexico-Texas border that is being fought over. So this is the Yankees are the vampires, okay? Those are partially the vampires, but they're also using actual real supernatural vampires. And I don't even really remember why our two main characters end up traveling, but they have to travel and run away from the vampires. And their banter is amazing. And I read this in like 2 days. And it was so fun. And I think about reading it often. And it doesn't hurt that these two books have the most stunning covers I have ever seen. I just love them so much. So I adore those. I really like them. Next up, we've got The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Ooh, this is made for me. I love short story vignette things. And this is short story vignette thing. It's a revenge horror, which I also really like. I like haunted house horrors and I like revenge horrors. I really do. And this is a revenge horror. It's these boys who wrongfully killed something. And it's kind of like a metaphor for how they basically disrespected community. And then the thing they killed, its spirit or it, unsure, haunts them and starts seeking its revenge. And it's gruesome. And it is, wow. Things happened where I'm like, oh, wow. And some of it's self-inflicted and some of it is this entity. And I really enjoy it. Again, things that people say about this book that make me want to like fight. They don't like the basketball. And I'm sorry. This whole book is about revenge because of failing community, and community around sports is huge, and basketball as a way for people to form community and also maybe escape the community and become better through scholarship was a huge part of this book, and that's why it should have been there. And so one of the climactic scenes surrounding basketball is iconic and lives rent-free up here in my head. Okay? So good. Like, this book is amazing. I definitely, like, wouldn't recommend it to, like, first-time horror readers because the pacing's weird. But it's like, I like slow burn horror. I like pacey horror. I've shown you a lot of books on this list that are like go, 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 stress, tension, raw. This one, no. It's going to have spurts of, whoa. That was a lot. That was creepy. Well, that was, okay, very final. Moving on. It's going to do that more often. But in the meantime, you're going to have these slice of life moments, but I do eat them up, and it makes it when the punch hits land so good. I don't own this book only because the paperbacks drive me crazy. I want just a normal paperback without the inset. Or the step back. Is that so hard? It is. So one day, if I see the hardback in the wild, I will acquire it, and it'll be glorious. My second from the top, she's an icon. She is glorious. She's one of the few where it was a 5-star experience when I read it and a 5-star experience in memory, and that is Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cooper Smith. And it's also one of the few books both Ryan and I like. We have some books that we both like, but this is one of the few. This was so cool. This is supernatural. Like, a lot of times it'll be sold in a general fiction section, but it's supernatural and it's horror. The premise of this book is, I think her name's Wendy. It's Win or Wendy. She's missing, and it's in Vietnam, and we're kind of going back and forth in time to figure out what happened to her. But at the same time, we're also learning about what happened to the land, and everything's interconnected, and you just have to truly trust the process. And then the ending happens. And if you've read this book, the ending, it just like, you're like, huh, yeah, that's perfect. That reframes everything, and that was perfect. Beautiful. Yeah, it's short story vignette as well, because like in terms of like we have all these interconnected stories, and then eventually you're like, wait, so that's how this is connected to that, and it's not necessarily complicated. Like it does get relatively spelled out for you, but it's also engaging enough where you can put the pieces together just a hair before it's revealed, and it's very satisfying in that way. And yeah, I read this 4 years ago. I think it was 2022. Loved it. Still think about it. This is probably, in terms of like recency bias, the oldest list this high up. Like the oldest book on this list this high up. I'm sorry that my sentences are starting to make less sense. That's just that's how I am when I love things. That's why it's hard to make gushing videos. It's like, I don't know how to talk anymore. If you've been around for a while, you're probably like, I think I know what number 1 is. Or you're like, wait, where is this? And I'm cheating. I'm putting a whole trilogy as number 1 because I can and I will. And that's the Indian Lake trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones. Like, whew. Now, if I had to pick my favorite in this trilogy, it would probably be Don't Fear the Reaper. It would probably be that one. And neck and neck with My Heart is a Chainsaw. And then, but is it all worth it without the ending of The Angel of Indian Lake? Like, it's hard. I love the whole trilogy. I have a Should You Reads for it if you want an actual, like, cohesive review of these books. But I do think this is probably when I picked up My Heart is a Chainsaw, I was like, oh, I like horror. I think I'm in now. I think I'm in. like especially slashers. I think this is when I realized, oh, I like a slasher. And I think a few years before this, I had finally watched Scream, and we'd watched Psycho recently. So it's like, yeah, I think I do like the tension behind this. And what I think is really fun about these books is it both tells you what's happening, like minimal mystery, and yet all the mystery, like the book psychs you out. You're like, I thought I knew what was happening, and I don't know what was happening. And then this is the book with the most iconic I love her character. Like, there's a lot of characters I really like throughout all the books that I've been talking about. I love Nestor from Vampires of El Norte. I love Pepper from The Devil in Silver. But like this one, Jade, she's an icon. She's a queen. And the evolution of her character is stunning. Because you start with her as a teenager in the first book. By the last book, she's in her 30s and she's been through it. And so it's really fascinating seeing who she becomes and how she copes and just how the arc unfurls. I also love a character who is passionate, and Jade Daniels is by far one of the most hyper-fixated, passionate, head-in-the-clouds individual I have read in eons, and I love her for that. I love reading her dissertations on slasher films that she keeps giving to her history teacher. I love that. So I fell in love with Jade pretty much instantly, and then it makes it pretty easy to be very invested with her arc as you go forward, because she can't be the same person the entire time. You can't go through 3 slashers and come out okay. Like, well, maybe, I don't know. Does she come out okay? Unsure. But you don't come out not changed. That's for sure. There's definitely change. And I love these books. So anyways, those are my favorite horror since I started reading horror, which has been since BookTube. I do not think I've really read horror before this, at least in my opinion. Let me know your favorites, any that you would recommend me based off this list. You know, if you're just like, oh man, because you loved this, I think you will love this. All right, I would love those recommendations. And let me know if you have any of your favorites on this list, which ones they are, because then we can mutually gush together. You can also explain why some of these didn't work for you. That's totally fine. I love these enough for everyone, so it's fine. And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a horror emoji, like any horror emoji you would like. And if you truly need something from me, a blood drop. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.